everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So what do I think about the Evil Dead movies? Well, I think that I've watched them in wrong chronological order, because this is a spicy take, quite a spicy take, probably the spiciest of takes I'm going to have for quite a while, I think, because not only do I think that Evil Dead is an overrated movie, I think it is a far inferior movie to any of the other movies that have been made under the Evil Dead umbrella since then, because I watched the movies in the following order. I watched Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, and then Evil Dead 1. So I just didn't appreciate Evil Dead for what it was, and I maybe have seen Evil Dead twice. I think I've seen Evil Dead 2 maybe 8, 9 times. I've seen Army of Darkness, I think 35, 40, even 50 times. I think it is one of the most gorgeous, amazingly awesome movies that has ever been made, ever. But when they announced that they were going to make a movie called Evil Dead Rise, I said, oh dear, another unwanted cash-in on a, famous horror, franchise. So long after, the other movies had been made, I had no expectation of this whatsoever. And when I was just watching the, starting of this movie, I just felt to myself, oh, this is going to be this, and that. Then they did something where I thought, well, at least they got that thing right, because I've been so tired of all of these movies having, wasted perfectly good title sequences with just, black screen and a title card saying, the title of the movie. Here they have Evil that rises above the mountains, and it looks awesome, big, and it was, quite eye-catching. I mean, it was almost Bahubali levels of eye-catching. Not quite as good as that, but not far from it. So, how good is this movie? It's actually much better than I expected it, and far better than it had any right to be. Well, let's find out what this movie is about, shall we? This is Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise will, however, not take place in, some cabin in the woods or in medieval times. It will take place in a decrepitating building somewhere in Los Angeles, where we have this single mom and her 3 children that are staying there. The building is going to be demolished quite soon, and the stairs aren't working at the moment, and the elevator, after an earthquake, has left them kind of stuck up there high above the rest of the city. Recently, she's also had some visits from, her sister, who has found out that, she's pregnant and she doesn't know what to do. And the fact is that she has come here, for some, counseling and stuff like that, because she has never been the reliable or the responsible one. But the pregnancy and all that stuff is going to have to wait, because part of the bottom of the building has been exposed due to the earthquake, and the bottom of the building used to be a bank back in the days, and a part of the vault has been exposed, and her children are going off on a bit of a excursion there, and the son, who is an aspiring DJ, finds a bunch of vinyl records and also a book. The book is not the Book of the Dead, it's not the Necronomicon, it's kind of a similar thing to the Necronomicon, but it is not the Necronomicon. I like the fact that it wasn't the Necronomicon but another book. And he starts to play these vinyl records, which unleashes the undead, which was very good for the Deadites, that vinyl has become popular in recent years. Otherwise, you would just have thrown away those vinyl records and nothing would ever have happened. But now the Deadites are free, and these demon creatures, they infect their mother, and now she's threatening the children, and it is up to her sister to actually step up, take some responsibility, and try to protect the children against their crazy mom. Can she be cured, or will they all be killed up here now that they're stuck up here in this huge building? Who can they trust? Who can help them, or do they have to help themselves? That is sort of kind of what Evil Dead Rise is about. Now, as I said, I do not like horror movies with, you know, supernatural elements to itself. I hate them, hate them, hate them. And I started to watching this movie very grumpy, like, I'm not going to like this at all. But the more I saw and the longer the movie went, the less grumpy I get. I got a little bit, you know, cantankerous at the moments, but then I went, this is actually not that bad. Pair up that with a very, very good finale that even was able to convince me that a wood chipper and chainsaws could be located somewhere in downtown LA, and it didn't feel forced or too far-fetched. And the gore was just so goddamn creative. Usually when you have these, you know, big gore things going on, I usually get, whatever, it's not, it's fine. The thing is that because they coated the very creative and very eye-wincing gore with some very, very well-placed black humor, it made it so much better. And because of this, I started to get a little bit, yeah, I like this. Even though I will say this, I more wish that this movie was more of a, you know, black horror comedy with a lot of creative gore rather than a horror movie with creative gores with a sprinkle and some well-placed comedy into this one, because let's face it, I'm not a huge horror fan, but I like it when they introduce, you know, comedy to the whole thing. That usually makes the whole thing more palatable. And because of that, it really worked. By the way, I love the fact how they transitioned from, you know, the cabin in the woods starting point of this movie to the setup in LA. That was a very clever little joke that I thought was not only very clever, but also set the sort of tone for this one. As I said, I wish this movie had a lot more humor to itself. I also like, however, that they used the right amount of, you know, callbacks to other parts of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. They did not make a single reference to Army of Darkness, you cowards. But considering that Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi were, you know, executive producer for this one, they were able to steer the ship just, you know, on the right side of, you know, callbacks and Easter eggs without, you know, it becoming a, you know, just fan service and unnecessary, oh, look at this. That was a fun thing, wasn't it, with that little small Easter egg thing. Is this movie scary? No, I didn't think it was scary, even though I love the fact that the, you know, family dynamic was a bit unusual, considering that the children were quite young, and we have, you know, the mother, you know, is going to try to kill them, and I was thinking, they're not going to kill a pregnant woman in a horror movie, and they're not going to kill the children, so who are they going to kill? Or are they going to do it? And that little uncertainty created a stress level I thought this movie was very, very beneficial from having. Now, I will also say this, that if you like, you know, supernatural horror movies and, you know, have these demons going blah, 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 and all that stuff, I think you're going to like this movie, but I think also that you have seen other movies that you think are better. But if you, like me, are absolutely sick of these by the number, boring and predictable horror movies, I think you will find a lot of things in this movie that is to your liking. This is especially when it comes to the ending, because if there is anything I hate with a passion about modern supernatural horror movies, aka movies from the 2000 and forward, which I don't know if that is, you know, classified as modern, but whatever. It is the fact that we never get any good resolutions for our characters. There's always just sequel baitings or cop-outs or fake-outs or, you know, just another sequence where they think that, oh, I'm safe now, and then something comes up and now munches them. So all of this was completely pointless, and I've always maintained that I think that they should do this thing in these kinds of horror movies, but they never do it. There is an ending I want in a supernatural horror movie that they never do. They did that in this movie, and I loved it. I thought it was so clever, I thought it was so great, and it fixed the entire thing. I think if they would have had, you know, the standard bad supernatural horror movie thing that they normally do, I would have, you know, probably given this movie 15, 20 points less than what it would have gotten, because now I would say something like, well, they had me just up until, you know, they the last 5 minutes and then they completely screwed this thing up. But now they didn't do that. They gave me exactly the type of ending that I wanted. And because of that, I could enjoy the rest of the movie that much more. The creative horror, the legitimately quite scary bits that did exist, you know, here and there, and the suspense were actually there. Now, do I think that you will like this movie more than me? If you are a huge fan of the Evil Dead movies, I actually think I do think that you will find this movie to be better than what I thought it was. But it was a very creative, kind of tense, unique and kind of playful horror movie that I thought had more to offer than what your normal horror movie has to offer. Oh, by the way, they also had, you know, a couple of years ago this sort of remake, reboot sort of thing they did, which was called Evil Dead. I actually also thought that was an okay movie because they did have an element to it which I thought was very, very brilliant. Even though it was just another kind of decent horror film, but one thing it had going for itself, which I thought was very, very cool, was, my God, the amount of gore they had in that movie. It was almost to the point of where it gotten ridiculous and almost became a parody of itself, considering how incredibly amount of blood they had in that movie. But if you've never seen, you know, the rebooted version of Evil Dead, I do sort of recommend it because it is better than what its reputation would suggest. But this movie was even better. It was so much better than it had any right to be. I did have so low expectations for it. I didn't think it was going to get, you know, even more than, you know, just a kind of okay thing. Now it became really, really good. It was really, really good. How surprising. Evil Dead Rise is a far superior horror movie to what has come out over the past few years when it comes to this type of horror film. I give this movie 70 points. I think it could have gone on to an easy, you know, mid-80s ratings if they could have, you know, made this a legitimate, funny, creative horror comedy with lots of gore and lots of creativity and lots of absurdist humor. Now, they didn't do that, but they gave us some of it. And because they at least gave us some of it, I could appreciate what it almost did rather when it did. If you've never seen this movie, as I said, do see it because it is a really good movie. Far better than I expected it to be. So which one is your favorite when it comes to the Evil Dead movies? Comment below and I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.